Thank you for joining our webinar today. My name is Adam Lee with Microsoft Gold Partner PEI. Today we'll be discussing the importance of multi-factor authentication and how it's essential in securing both admin and end user accounts. MFA is so important because a username and password is no longer secure enough when it comes to identity access. Remember, these attackers are using the best resources and constantly evolving their techniques to increase their success rate. It's not a matter of if, it is really a matter of when your username and password will be figured out. So we really need to be proactive on both the partner side and the end user side. Although securing identities is relevant across the entire tech industry, we're going to be focusing on MFA for Office 365 users. It doesn't matter what your company size is, what your industry is, or even your location. You've got the data and even the money that can be stolen or held for ransom. We're joined today by Microsoft superstar Kevin Martins to discuss this topic. Kevin is the partner technical architect at Microsoft and all-around super stud here. Kevin, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Adam. That's quite the introduction. Let's get started.
So Kevin, tell me about what Microsoft is seeing today with these attacks.
So first of all, thank you for highlighting that this is not just a Microsoft problem, as this is so true. All types of cloud identities are under attack, from the account that you use for work to the account that you sign into your bank with. You name it, and that service is under attack. I see logs all of the time that show that. Microsoft spoke in a session at Ignite 2019, which is one of their major conferences, about the types and levels of attacks that they see. Now remember, Microsoft has over 200 products and services across the world that they're constantly keeping secured. For example, in December 2019, there were 1.2 billion Windows devices across the world, over 1 billion Azure user accounts, and over 65 million Xbox Live accounts. Of that, there were then 630 billion monthly authentications and so much more. There's a lot of telemetry coming in from all of these types of different services. This equates to over 8 trillion signals per day that Microsoft analyzes. The artificial intelligence that's in place enables Microsoft to understand a good logon versus a malicious attempt as they continuously learn about evolving attacks. What is really neat about all of this is that all of the data is analyzed and then deployed across Microsoft's intelligent security graph to help secure, again, all of these 200 plus services. And how do most of these users log in? This is unfortunate, but most just have a simple username and password. Again, not just with their Microsoft accounts, but with all of their user accounts. They're just unaware of this evolving threat. This is nothing in the eyes of the attacker. And to properly secure identity accounts, multi-factor authentication must be enabled. One problem with implementing MFA is that many companies think that attacks just don't happen to them. So Adam, what are some of the real-world examples that PEI has witnessed?
We've got a couple examples of really relatable ways that people are getting attacked. One of the most common methods we're seeing is through email phishing. Malicious actors can send emails that look like they're coming from Microsoft or your bank or Facebook or multiple different entities that you are using for sign-on. Your users click on these emails and they think that they're logging into their O365 account when they're really actually sending their account information directly to these hackers without knowing. We spoke to an organization that had this exact experience with an employee in the accounts payable department. The hacker was able to log into her email account and send out a fake invoice. With access to her entire O365 account, the malicious party had all they needed to make the invoice and an email appear legitimate. The breach was not discovered until a significant amount of money had been wired to the hackers directly, over $100,000, and that money was gone. There is no way to recuperate those funds. In other cases, we've seen users connect to public Wi-Fi networks in airports, coffee shops, or other public spaces because they really just want to catch up on some work emails. These Wi-Fi networks may be named something that sounds legitimate, let's say DIA free Wi-Fi, but actually, it's a malicious group who set up that Wi-Fi to steal passwords and usernames as they travel across the network. In one specific example of this, an attacker got into a user's O365 account and emailed all of his contacts a fake PDF containing malware. Now, this was a business owner who ended up losing their business because of the loss of reputation that this caused, giving all of their clients malware.
So Adam, those are some pretty severe consequences for attacks that could have been easily stopped if their MFA policy was correctly configured.
That's right, Kevin. Let's talk about the impact of enabling MFA. Does it really help to secure users' accounts?
Great question. So me being from Microsoft, I don't want you to just take my word for it, Adam. Let's talk about a ZDNet article that was published in late August 2019. In that article, both Microsoft and Google said that enabling MFA will eliminate 99.9% of account breaches. Nothing is 100% in this world, but that's pretty darn close to it. So that advice is coming from companies who host a combined billions of accounts and are the most attacked platforms in the world. A recommendation like this cannot be taken lightly. With MFA being included in Office 365 and so many flexible options available to use MFA, there really isn't much of an excuse on why it's not enabled yet on all of your user accounts.
So having MFA for admins is a no-brainer. They have total access to your O365 portal. But can you go into a bit of detail about why it's important to have MFA for not only the admin, but for all end user accounts?
Sure. So MFA for all user accounts is just so important. Attackers are going to attack all different types of accounts because once they get into one, now they're in and they can start to move laterally to other accounts. So let's say, for an example, I'm an attacker and I attack a receptionist account. That person generally does not have any purchasing capabilities or approving capabilities or any responsibilities such as that. But if I'm the attacker and I get in, now I have access to the global address list of everyone else in that company. Now I can figure out who exactly I need to go after next. That might be the CFO of the company or some other team or specific person in accounts payable. I can start to move around and start to attack them in the same way as I attacked the receptionist account. If I got in one way, I can get in the same way, but now against another different account, which is really the one that I'm after.
Kevin, those are some great examples, but let's move on to end user experience. One of the things we get from a lot of our clients is they're concerned about MFA becoming a roadblock for their end users and their employees. After implementing it across their organization, tell us what end users are going to see and what it's going to look like when they log into their account the next day.
So you're right. The end user experience here is so important. MFA must be easy and cannot be interpreted as a pain in the rear. So Microsoft has designed their MFA to utilize multiple formats, giving the user flexibility to choose how they want to provide that second layer of authentication. Well, let's go ahead and quickly show you several of the options you can use to authenticate within Microsoft Office 365. It's built in. Why not use it? In this demonstration, we will use a text message for our two-factor authentication. We will start by going to the Office 365 portal. Here, we are prompted to log in as our test user. We enter the password and click on Sign In. Now we wait for our text message to arrive. Within a second or two it arrives, and we now have our 6-digit PIN. We enter it into the code area. Click on Verify. Click on Yes to stay logged in. And now we're fully logged into the Office 365 portal. Here, we will use a telephone call for our two-factor authentication. Once again, we will log into portal.office.com. We will be prompted to enter the username. We enter in our password. And so now we wait for our phone call.
User using the Microsoft Sign-In verification system. Please press the pound key to finish your verification.
We press the pound key.
Your sign-in was successfully verified. Goodbye.
And now we're logged in. On an Android phone, we will use the Microsoft Authenticator app to approve a two-factor authentication request. Once again, we will start by going to portal.office.com, entering the username, password, and now we receive our two-factor authentication request. We will approve it in the app. Click Yes to stay logged on, and now we're fully logged in. Still on an Android phone, we will now use a rotating pin displayed within the Microsoft Authenticator app to approve a two-factor authentication request. Once again, we will start by going to portal.office.com, enter the username, followed by the password. Now we go into our Authenticator app, and we will see a rotating pin. Now we enter it in, click on Verify, click on Yes to stay signed in, and now we're fully logged in.
Kevin, that really is easy. That was less than 5 minutes, and you were able to log in and go through multi-factor authentication in 4 different ways. This seemed extremely user-friendly.
Exactly, Adam. It really is. I use it every day. And most importantly, it would have stopped the attacks for both of the examples you mentioned before. Even if those users fall for those scams and their information is compromised, their username and password, MFA will stop these malicious actors from taking that last step and getting into their accounts. I need to highlight that while MFA is straightforward to implement, the impact of this should not be underestimated. Before you enable this in Office 365, do your research and work with a Microsoft partner like PEI for their advice and assistance. As an organization, you may only do this once, but partners who specialize in this area do it all the time and know about the proper steps to follow for a smooth implementation. Things like a pilot, proper user communication, training, making sure users understand why this is being done to avoid resistance, and more things like this come to mind that need to be taken into account for a project such as this. You also do not want your users to be prompted for MFA all of the time. For example, while they are logging in from a company office behind a firewall or from a company-managed device, those are on trusted networks and on trusted devices where MFA is typically not needed. The flexibility of these conditional access policies, as we call them, is built right into Office 365. So Adam, as you can see, the user experience for MFA is not painful at all. In fact, it will give users the extra sense of security their employer is taking to protect everyone while at the same time making a tremendous increase to its own cybersecurity posture. So I think we've given everyone a lot to think about why MFA is so important and how painless it is to use, but also why they should consider some additional help in their planning and implementation. What's the next step our viewers can take to learn more about MFA and more about the implementation process?
For those interested in MFA, we offer a free security assessment where we explain the threat landscape, examine your risk, and discuss how MFA would work in your environment. We also review common issues we've seen during implementation. The point of MFA is to be easy, but at the same time, to make sure you are secure. That being said, on behalf of Kevin and myself, thank you so much for listening. Tune in next time for another one of our tech talks, and we'll see you out there.